But first, yesterday, Newark, New Jersey Mayor Cory Booker, who was admittedly an Obama surrogate, he went on NBC News and lambasted the president's team for attacking former Governor Mitt Romney's tenure at Bain Capital. Watch this.
I have to just say, from a very personal level, I'm not about to sit here and indict private equity. To me, it's just this, we're getting to a ridiculous point in America, especially that I know I live in a state where pension funds, unions, and other people are investing in companies like Bain Capital. If you look at the totality of Bain Capital's record, they've done a lot to support businesses, to grow businesses, and this, to me, I'm very uncomfortable. The last point I'll make is this kind of stuff is nauseating to me on both sides. It's nauseating to the American public. Enough is enough. Stop attacking private equity. Stop attacking Jeremiah Wright. This stuff has got to stop.
All right, on that point, a Democrat who's not afraid to speak the truth. Now, that is apparently until the Obama campaign starts knocking on his door. Now, within hours of his appearance on Meet the Press, Booker posted a video online where he said he was, quote, expanding his answer. Listen to this.
I use the word nauseating on Meet the Press because that's really how I feel when I see people in my city struggling with real issues and still feeling the challenges of this economy and still looking for hope and opportunity and real specific plans. I get very upset when I see such a level of dialogue that calls to our lowest common denominators and not the kind of things that are going to unify us as a nation and move us forward. Let me be clear. Mitt Romney has made his business record a centerpiece of his campaign. He's talked about himself as a job creator, and therefore it is reasonable, and in fact I encourage it, for the Obama campaign to examine that record and to discuss it. I have no problem with that.
Translation, they made me take back my real answer. Joining me now with reaction, former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. That is so transparent. I mean, he gave an honest answer. They flipped out because this is the crux of their campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, doggone it. It was a shame to see Cory kind of back down from what his answer was, which was so candid. Sean, he was the antithesis of the typical politician because he didn't do this before he spewed his answer to David Gregory there. When Cory, in the House of pain, along with every other American who understands that Obama doesn't understand the free market system, and he will condemn private equity because he doesn't understand the benefits of private equity in job creation. So it was a shame that Cory backed down a little bit from that, but I think we saw what his true feelings were. He articulated it.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because the president gives his press conference today, and almost word for word, he gives Cory Booker's second answer, the centerpiece of his campaign. He can fix it, the economy. Watch this with President Obama today.
And the reason this is relevant to the campaign is because my opponent, Governor Romney, his main calling card for why he thinks he should be president is his business experience. Yeah, he's not going out there touting his experience in Massachusetts. He's saying, I'm a business guy and I know how to fix it, and this is his business. And when you're president, as opposed to the head of a private equity firm, then your job is not simply to maximize profits. Your job is to figure out how everybody in the country has a fair shot.
Now, Cory Booker says centerpiece of his campaign, and then the president says his main calling card. So obviously this is their big campaign strategy, right?
Right, and Obama admitted as such, now as much, but Sean, Mitt Romney can't be surprised at these attacks or at these questions about his private sector experience because he does tout that as the criteria to be met in order to lead the country needs to be a business background, and that's where Romney comes from. He needs to forcefully and candidly and proudly defend his record. If he does not, then Obama and his surrogates, his lapdogs in the media, will obviously put him in a very poor light. So Romney and his advisors really need to come out forcefully in defending the free market, defending that record at Bain, and standing strong on one's record. That's why we don't want to take that off the table. We don't want anything off the table in terms of discussion and vetting through this campaign.
Well, I want to get to you on that because it's a very interesting development. But before we do, it's interesting you say that because the Romney campaign has come out with an ad. Now, it wasn't only Cory Booker. It was Harold Ford Jr., Steve Radner, another one. And so the Romney campaign put together an ad, and it's called the Big Bain Backfire. And let's play it for you.
Have you had enough of President Obama's attacks on free enterprise? His own key supporters have. Democrat Mayor Cory Booker of New Jersey.
I have to just say from a very personal level, I'm not about to sit here and indict private equity.
Former Congressman Harold Ford Jr., Democrat from Tennessee.
Private equity is not a bad thing. Matter of fact, private equity is a good thing in many, many instances.
Former Obama economic advisor and auto czar, Stephen Ratner, a leading Democrat.
And I don't think there's anything Bain Capital did that they need to be embarrassed about.
If you look at the totality of Bain Capital's record, they've done a lot to support businesses, to grow businesses.
Even Obama's own supporters have had enough.
It's nauseating to the American public. Enough is enough.
The big Bain backfire. What do you think of that ad?
Well, those were some beautiful messages in there because they are based on time-tested truths about what the free market can provide in terms of job creation. Now, a community organizer like Barack Obama, though, has absolutely no idea except how to spend other people's money and redistribute other people's money in order to, quote-unquote, create jobs. And yet his surrogates there come from, in many respects, the private sector. And each one of those individuals does have a lot of private sector experience, unlike their leader, Barack Obama. So those surrogates, in speaking truth about private equity, about the free market, was a pretty brilliant piece of advertisement there that was put together.
Let me ask you this. You said nothing should be off the table when it comes to the vetting of the president. And the issue of Reverend Wright came out again this week when we discovered that Reverend Wright, in fact, was offered money, he claims, for his silence in 2008, and that President Obama had a private meeting with him urging him to be quiet. And, you know, and then, of course, there was this pact that was going to perhaps run these ads bringing up the Reverend Wright issue. We talked about it on this program. We used President Obama in his own words from his audiobook, Dreams from My Father. And there have been many people that say that should be off limits. That shouldn't be a part of the campaign. Now, I argue issue 1, 2, and 3 is the economy. 4, 5, and 6 is national security. 7, 8, and 9 is the president's failed record. Not necessarily in that order. But this is relevant. You thought so in 2008. Do you think it's relevant, these issues, today?
I do, and I thought so in 2008, and that's why I went rogue, if you will, and disagreed with some of John McCain's advisors when they said, no, a lot of these issues like past associations and Reverend Wright and Bill Ayers and those that helped shape Obama's worldview needed to be off the table and not discussed. I disagreed then. I disagree now. Barack Obama back in 2008 was an empty vessel. The public did not know what or who filled this vessel in order to create what has become a very, I think, confused and mission and vision-less leader for our country. Well, now it's not too late to change course and this next go-around understand what has filled up that vessel. Who are these people? Who are the radicals, the Marxist professors that he said he would hang out with, and some of his friends and associations, and even what his past voting record represents, how that filled up that vessel and has led to this very confused country in so many respects.
All right, Governor, I want to ask you more on this when we get back, especially in light of the war on women, Al Sharpton saying a war on blacks, Howard Dean saying Republicans don't like Latinos, the war on the poor, class warfare. I want to get back to this point because is it smart or wise for Republicans to take any issue off the table when it's clear that the Democrats are going back to 1965? So we'll continue with Governor Palin.
Do you realize that people were arrested for saying things bad about Bush? It doesn't matter, No, do you realize you're not supposed to slander? I'm not slandering. I asked the question. But I'm saying to you, you're not supposed to slander. People were arrested for saying derogatory things about Bush. You would have to say some pretty up to get him to be arrested. Because they cannot take away your right to have your opinion or your freedom of speech. They can't take that away even if you're unless you threaten the president. Sweetheart, you know, everybody thinks that when you're arrested, they're supposed to be able to read your rights to you. But they don't read your rights to you every time you're arrested. Did you know that? I've never been arrested. But did you know that, though? No. Okay.
And welcome back to Hannity. Still with us is former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. Now, that was a North Carolina teacher. First of all, that student is my new hero because he was right on the facts, on the issues. He stayed calm. The teacher got angrier and angrier and then got suspended. But you have kids in school. I have kids in school. And it's like, here's a kid saying, wait a minute, you're saying Romney was a bully from 1965, but there's a tape also of Barack Obama admitting he bullied. Why don't you bring that up? What did you think of that?
Wow, I just hope that this teacher isn't tenured and protected by some big teachers union that will allow her to continue to try to indoctrinate a child, a student, like she just did. That's atrocious. Yes, I have kids in public school. I come from a family full of public school teachers, and it's so foreign to me, the idea of a teacher thinking that they can get away with doing this to a student, and more power to that student for standing up for First Amendment rights.
Yeah. All right, you've been through probably the toughest vetting process of anybody, and you have taken on just so much unfair criticism from the time that you were announced as vice president, and up to today probably. I haven't checked the daily news, but as you know, it's almost a daily occurrence for you. Here's what we know so far. The Washington Post brought up the story of an incident 47 years ago. In 1965, about a haircut and a conflict that Romney did or didn't have in terms of cutting a student's hair. Today, the Washington Post brought up an issue from the mid-1800s about a Mormon massacre and this conflict with Arkansas. They've talked about a war on women repeatedly. Al Sharpton says there's a war on blacks. Howard Dean says that Republicans don't like Latinos. Then, of course, there's a war on the poor, throwing Granny over the cliff. And, and even Mitt Romney hates dogs because he put a dog on a kennel on top of the car. But yet, the Republicans don't seem as willing to fight the same way. I'm a little concerned about it. I don't think the governor needs to do it, but why repudiate people that will fight, fire with fire?
Amen, brother. You're absolutely right, Sean. This phony, hypocritical, one-sided call for a ceasefire by the left and their lapdogs in the media, these leftist politicians saying that's going to be off the table, that's going to be off the table. And then for the Republican operatives who are high-paid consultants to candidates agreeing to take things off the table, that's no battle plan for victory on our side, on common sense constitutionalist side. It's ridiculous. So a one-sided ceasefire call is not something to agree to.
Yeah.
Some of these GOP operatives, Sean, they seem to have the fighting instinct of Mr. Snuffleupagus. And if you remember him, he would hide, he would back down, he would run the other direction. That is not what we need in this volatile, very dangerous, and as I have said before, a very confused time in our country. If we want to continue to be exceptional and prosperous and secure and the most generous country in the entire world, then, Sean, we have got to fight tooth and nail, putting everything on the table so we can contrast for the electorate the choice that they have coming up in November.
The general consensus with the Washington class, and by the way, I repeat, the economy, national security, Obama's failed record, that is the top issue. And I'm not even saying Governor Romney should involve himself in any of this. But how about not repudiating people that are going to bring up the full vetting of the president? As I was saying last week, because I was saying I don't want to see anything off the table like you're saying, let's not take things off the table so quick here, because I don't see the Democrats doing that. And the president himself said Republicans want dirty air and water. The president himself said he wants the Republicans want kids with autism, Down syndrome, and the elderly fending for themselves. I never heard the president criticizing a Paul Ryan lookalike, woo, Granny over the cliff. So if you're laughing, but it's frustrating, the double standard to me.
It's disgusting, the double standard, and I'm really tired of, again, too many in the GOP establishment just kind of kowtowing to what the left will dictate in terms of how this election's going to go. It's not a battle plan for victory, and if we're in it to win it, we have to do all that we can to contrast these choices that we have in November. All
right, last question. It's a two-part question. One, how active do you foresee that you will be in the campaign, and if you had to advise the governor who to pick for VP, who would you advise him?
I will be very active in helping to vet and throw my endorsement, if they will receive it, for senatorial candidates and those who will represent us in the House of Representatives, because this isn't in November just all about the presidency. This is about who and what we are going to allow a sudden and relentless change to come from, and that is going to be the legislative branch also. So I'll be a strong proponent of constitutional conservatives and help with endorsements in that arena, and I'll do whatever I can, of course, to get anybody but Obama elected to the White House. If I could advise the GOP nominee to choose whomever it would be as a VP candidate, you know, I've said specifically that I really like Alan West. I love people who aren't in politics like Thomas Sowell. I love people who understand the Constitution and will fight tooth and nail and are willing to put their lives and their families' lives on the line to defend our republic. That is who I want to see as that teammate for the GOP nominee.
Governor, very well said, and I know your throat was bothering you a little bit tonight. I hope you feel better. Lots of tea and Ricola, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you. It's always a privilege.
And coming up next.